Powered by Red Media in partnership with TSN, it is season 6 of the Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. A Canadian score with new Tim Hortons 3-meat hat-trick flatbread pizzas served hot and absolutely fresh out of the oven. Features sliced bacon, pepperoni, sausage crumble, and it's also available with the new cheesy pull-apart garlic bread. Delicious. Awesome pairing for any flatbread pizza, loaded wrap, or bowl. Check it out at Tim Hortons. All right, Ray, what a week it's been, man. You know, we're recording this on Thursday morning. Normally we try and do Tuesday, Thursday. Oddly, odd week we'll do Tuesday, Friday, depending on travel and whatnot. So it seems like it's been a while since we've done one, but there's a lot of stuff going on, which we're going to get to in our Tim Hortons headlines. But we don't often chew on the business side of the sport. We don't. Like, come on. I mean, people get enough of that. It does feel this week that we at least have to touch on the reality of what went down. And the National Hockey League scores big with an $11 billion with a B extension of the Canadian national rights package with Rogers. $11 billion for a 12-year deal that sort of, kind of, but doesn't include an extra day a week, which now the National Hockey League can also farm out, sell off to, an agreed upon list of bidders, and the French language rights, all of that. So when I say $11 billion, it's going to be higher than $11 billion coming back the way of NHL owners. So, start there. You can say whatever you want about Commissioner Bettman. Doesn't matter what we think and all of that. The one thing this man has done well in office as commissioner of the National Hockey League has increased franchise values and made it a great place to be for most, if not all, NHL owners.
I don't know what maybe you had a heads up, Dregs, because of the circles you run in, but a buddy of mine, actually it was John Butchergross, texted me kind of a screen cap of when the first note of that came over over the wires, and I was like, nah, this can't be right, because it felt like there was more pieces to it. But to do like such a wide-ranging, all-encompassing deal, and then to realize, there is still more to it, was pretty remarkable to me. Like when I saw the number, I'm like, well, like it was like I couldn't quite comprehend the dollar figure, B, the years, and then the fact that there still is more to it. I remember back, to the first 12-year deal that they signed, and when I first got news of that, that felt like a thunderbolt. And that was in Canada, for those that are listening in the States, basically like everything flipped in one moment. And then this surprised me, because I thought there would be more partners to it, yet there still might be, right? There still might be. And so it's owners must be pretty happy, I'll tell you that. They must be.
I mean, say what you want about Bettman, man. He's a master negotiator. He really, truly is. And nobody
can get past that. Whenever people talk about Gary, whatever their positives and there are negatives, they always end up somewhere back at just where you stated right here, is that when he negotiates, he gets the last dollar out of it. And owners clearly are in his corner, and they are clearly wealthier than when he took over. That's for sure.
And look, he can't be commissioner forever, and there has to be a succession plan that's already in play, right? And whether that's Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly taking on more tasks on a regular basis, some of the stuff that normally Gary historically has done, fine. But this would be one of the pillars, I would think, of Gary Bettman perhaps opening the door to retirement, whenever that is. And it'll be on his terms. But you get a big deal like this done, right? You've got the CBA, which we know they're already in negotiations with the Players Association. I mean, those are two big pillars for Bettman to look back if he chooses, when he chooses, to say I'm done and go, man, I'm leaving this league in really, really good shape.
One more thing to it. As you were talking, I mean, I've not given this 1 ounce of brain power, but the ESPN deal, TNT deal, the U.S. national rights are up in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were talking and about, the secession plan and whatever may or may not be there, I was like, oh, 3 years. Negotiate in 2, which, because it's always 1 year out with the exclusive rights. And I was like, kind of, I'm just, that's my timeline I just put together in my head with no real thought to it, but it kind of makes a little bit of sense, because then you would have both TV deals, you would have the CBA locked up, the players are back at the Olympics, like it's kind of all the big things that would be wrapped in.
All right, well, we'll get to the hockey stories momentarily, but somewhat of a professional / personal story that hits both of us and a lot of us, frankly. Anybody who's worked at TSN recognizes the name of Stuart Johnston, right? Longtime president of TSN, high-ranking executive with Bell Media, named the 15th commissioner of the Canadian Football League on Wednesday. And there had been some speculation around camp at TSN that, maybe, we're hearing this, and there's a short list of CFL names and all of that. And then it's made official on Wednesday. But, personally for me, this one hits home because I'm sure you've had coaches, you've had general managers, you've had bosses where you just know that you've got that support and they're behind you, and the vision that they're forging forward with is something that you just want to follow because it's right. So congratulations to Stu. I mean, and we all go through, look, you transitioned from being a player into a broadcaster. Think about what you'd be doing, Ray, if the broadcast transition wasn't seamless for you. Man, I don't know. Have you ever thought of that? What would it be? I don't know what it would be for me.
Yeah, I would probably have been in trail, and I would have been, and I would have gone back and worked in a business, and our concrete business that my dad started in 1947, and I'm sure my brothers would be like, yeah, just don't touch that, don't screw up anything, and like I'm sure that would be there. I'm going to tell you one little quick thing. I didn't know Stu very well, and we were at the World Juniors in Ufa in 2014, and so I had started on Twitter maybe, I don't know, a year or so earlier than that.
Yes.
And at the time, I found it quite amusing to be a little more confrontational or spicy or whatever.
I remember those days.
So we were sitting at dinner, and there was, I don't know, 10 people at the table. And Twitter came up because it was relatively new. And I said, and I mentioned something. I said, I don't know if you follow my account, and he goes, oh, I follow. And and just the way he said it, he's got a really deep voice, as you know, and it just kind of made me go, oh, maybe I should, because at the time I had no concept of like who's following anyway, like who's, as you type away, who's listening, and then I was like, oh, the bosses. So maybe keep your heads up on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, congratulations to Stu. He'll be missed at TSN, no doubt about that. All right, Tim Hortons headlines, right? And again, shocking. We're going to talk about the great chase, of course, Alex Ovechkin and his march to the regular season goal scoring record. Tough game for the Washington Capitals on Wednesday night against the Carolina Hurricanes, but Ovi, no shock to anyone, scores on the power play. In this case, the clapper on the 5-on-3. The Caps now have 7 games left. 3 goals doesn't seem like a lot to achieve that record, but any doubt? Is there even a shred of doubt in your mind that he's going to do this?
No, I would say there was a time, even just a couple of weeks ago, I was like, you know what, I kind of feel that there's a dry stretch coming. And he went dry for, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6 games. So it was right in the midst of that I was like, oh man, if he goes 8 or 9 games, it's probably going to wipe it out for this year. And then all of a sudden it's like 3 and 4, and here he is, 3 away. And he's got 3 games before next Saturday, the 12th. And that's our ABC game in Columbus. And so I'm kind of hoping now that he gets a couple during the week. And so, like, it would be awesome to be there for it. We did a Caps game last week, and Spencer Carberry, their fine coach, said that, he felt like they're a little distracted. And it would be really hard not to be. And so I'm looking at how Washington's played the last couple of nights out. Jared Bednar said the same thing in Colorado because they're locked into their spot. And he's like, it's already like everybody's looking ahead. They can't go anywhere. Washington's not going up. They're not going down. Colorado's not going to fall out of that 2-3 series. They're going to play Dallas in most likely fashion. And so the guys start looking ahead. You're not quite as sharp. And then Washington, Logan Thompson got banged up a little bit. And so you're like, oof, man, you're getting to the point in the year where it all starts to matter. You're like, well, what if he misses 2 weeks? What if he, whatever it could be, like, it all becomes a concern. So while Ovi's, right on the doorstep, and I think, by the way, now that he's within 3, that means the traveling entourage gets going around him in case he throws a 3 spot on the board one night. So,
for sure.
So that'll start Saturday for the NHL in their final, preparation to the countdown to the record. I mean, it's right there. It's just an amazing total to think about.
It is. So that game had a bizarre near end to it, right? So the game is in hand. Carolina is I think it was 5-1 at the time. Connor McMichael and Jalen Chatfield get into a tussle. Chatfield uses what looked to be, and again, you got to be careful when you watch these things real time versus slow motion, because we can dissect. But in this case, I would think that that's what George Parros, the Department of Players, say. Well, I don't think it's going to get to everything gets to their level, but I don't think they're going to look at this play and go, oh no, we can't allow this. We got to suspend or any. I don't get that sense. But Chatfield uses some sort of MMA tactic, right? Like he swings McMichael over his left leg pretty hard onto the ice. I don't think he deliberately wasn't trying to smash this guy's head into the ice. No chance he was trying to do that. But
no, but he was playing.
What was your first reaction?
He was trying to flip him for sure.
Yeah,
like that's there, and the guys that fight would be certainly way more qualified to talk about this than me. But I cannot think. I mean, maybe somebody could come up with an example, Dregs, but I cannot think of a time that I've seen a player plant his leg straight out as he's flipping somebody over. And so you can say he's not trying to smash his head on the ice, but you're in a fight. And again, I don't know how much thought goes into it when you're in the fight, like with all the adrenaline rushing and all that. But players get suspended for dangerous plays all the time. You cannot say in a fight that once the gloves come off, everything is fair play. Like, you can't. There still has to be some protection of the player as much as you can, because it is a fight, right? Like, guys are trying to punch each other in the face. If McMichael's head hits the ice, don't give me this whether fighting should be in the game or not in the game. And if his head hits the ice, what do you think we're talking about today? We're not talking about whether Chatfield should be suspended. Like, it's, in my mind, it's and again, I'm gonna preface this by saying I don't know how to fight. I was in 13 or 14 really lousy fights. Nobody was in any danger of getting hurt when I fought, and I didn't like that the very first time that I saw it. And most often, your gut instinct for me, I would say, is in the ballpark of what my final view will be of it. Like, what I see first oftentimes is the one that kind of sticks to me. I didn't like it. You said it won't get to, you didn't think it would get to player safety. I think it should. I just players get suspended for dangerous hits and dangerous plays all the time.
Yeah.
And this, in my mind, is elevated to that.
Yeah, and then to clarify, I mean, player safety looks at everything, right? So it's
Right.
in their hands, undoubtedly.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I look at George Parro, Stefan Quintel is still involved. Now you have Ryan Getzlaff as part of the NHL Department of Player Safety. There's 3 men who know a little bit about fighting, right? Like, I mean, Parros' career ended when his head hit the ice in a fight. So I suspect he's super sensitive to this. So I think it'll get the process for sure. But just to clarify,
I don't doubt that they're going to take a look. I just took your statement to mean like, it won't get to the fine or suspension thing. Quite frankly, I don't know how it can't. And because
do you think it's worth a game or two?
I do. I absolutely do.
Yeah.
Because the message, more than anything, this is how I've always felt about the suspensions, Dregs, and I think we've been through this enough to know. But I think there has to be a message in the suspension. It's not just, I'm going to slap your hand. And you get 2 games or 3 games or 1 game or whatever it is. I think there has to be a message that this is not right.
Yeah.
And so if you fine them $5,000, people notice and then it's gone away. But if you suspend them for a couple of games and then the word gets out, like they could easily put a memo out, that stuff can't happen.
Yeah.
Right? It just can't happen. And you can send that clip to every team and say, I want you to show your players this clip and just say, this is not okay. And then it's done. And then if somebody else does it again, well, then you've got a leg to stand on something more significant. If you don't do anything, what's to stop?
Yeah.
What's the next move? I don't know. I think the message can be sent here pretty clearly.
Excellent. All right. Well, on Monday, you suggest that we spend some time in this episode talking about teams that are in the playoffs or look like they're going to lock down a playoff spot that weren't in the playoffs last year. All right. So let's do that. Why don't we get to the headlines with some of these teams that are noteworthy and deserve some attention here. Talk about the St. Louis Blues. Why don't we start there, man? 10
how can you not?
In a row. So St. Louis hosts Pittsburgh tonight as we record here Thursday night. And if they beat the Penguins, and they probably should, they'll set a franchise record for an 11-game winning streak. And you mentioned this on Monday. I mean, I don't expect you to go through the whole roster. I mean, maybe you want to talk about the coaching of Jim Montgomery. I mean, how can we not, I guess? But you mentioned on Monday how, like, if you're set up to face the St. Louis Blues in round 1 of the playoffs, that's a formidable challenge, just given the momentum, the swagger that this group has going right now.
There is nothing that doesn't hit for them right now. When most people think of the Blues, I think they would go back to last summer when Doug Armstrong made those offer sheets to Edmonton, and they got a 25-goal scorer this year in Dylan Holloway, who I think that's going to be his number. Like, you're going to look at him and go, yeah, you can count on him for 25. He might get more, but I think like this, he's a legit forward. Philip Broberg is going to be he's going to be a 20-plus minute defenseman for a decade. Like, that guy can play. These were excellent signings for Doug Armstrong and the Blues. Like, out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
But they traded for Cam Fowler, and Cam Fowler has had a powerful impact on their blue line. And just think, for him, for the last few years, he's been in purgatory in Anaheim, like playoff purgatory, right? Like, they're rebuilding. You're not going to go to the playoffs. He'd been there his whole career. There was a really nice connection. Sometimes you need a little spark under your tail to find the player you are again. And I think Fowler needed a change. And he goes to St. Louis, and off he goes. He's really helped change them. Kyrou and Thomas are excellent players. Jake Neighbors was at 25, 27 goals last year. Zach Bolduc, that guy can score. So if I go back, one thing that Armstrong talked about with the offer sheets, Dregs, was to put together as many players in a certain age group as he could. And that's right around the ages of Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. And all these guys, Holloway, Bolduc, Neighbors, Thomas and Kyrou are a little bit older. Broberg jumps in there, and now you've got this young core that goes forward. A lot of this wouldn't have been possible, by the way, if Torrey Krug didn't have to go on LTIR.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's like one guy's misfortune turns out to be something else. And the Blues they'd be a hard out. Like they've got so much rolling right now. Like it is really impressive to watch them. And by the way, I don't think they can win. Like I'm going to say that, but this is exactly what they did in 2019. Same
tough
goalie.
In the West. Yeah,
but same goalie. Well, but here's the thing: tough in the West. You only have to win the series you're playing.
Right.
Like they don't have to worry about Colorado and Dallas. Those guys are going to beat each other's brains in. And then if St. Louis can get by whoever they're going to play in the first round, then you don't have to worry about them. I mean, there's no easy way for anybody out of that conference, though. Okay,
where are you with Minnesota? I mean, if they get healthy, do you see any sort of surprise happening for the Wild, or they're limping in and it's probably not going to go too well?
Well, I don't know that. I mean, both Kaprizov and Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek are skating, but I don't know exactly how much time they're going to get. It would be really hard to miss that much time. It'd be really effective to come back in. I think the Wild are primed to have a pretty busy summer. You know, all that cap money out of buyouts is gone, and Billy Guerin is just like rubbing his hands together. You know, like he's ready to go. I'm just one thought on the length of time that you're away, as Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov have been at this time of year, is really, really hard to jump right back in game one of the playoffs and be ready to go. Maybe an ultra talented guy like Kaprizov would have an easier time because he's still going to have his hands. Remember when Kucherov did it, right? Yeah. Went all the way. Yeah. Like I'm thinking of Florida. Aaron Ekblad's going to miss the last 18 games of the year plus the first 2 of the playoffs. Right. And people can look and go, oh, he's going to be back. He's going to be fresh. Yeah, he might have a bucket of rust on him too. Like it's not easy to come back like that.
No. Okay, over to the East, and there's some great stories there, right? I mean, both conferences, but the Montreal Canadiens. I'm going to mention 3 players. You can mention 12 if you want, but I'm starting with Lane Hutson. Then I'm looking at the captain, Nick Suzuki, and I'm just intrigued by Patrick Laine. The power play and what he's brought there. I just didn't expect him. And he's gone through some troubles this year with injury and all of that. I didn't expect him to be as impactful for the Canadiens this year as what he's turned out to be. But is he a difference maker? Maybe. He might be in a certain game and all of that. But just the leadership that you're getting from Suzuki and then the Rookie of the Year push by Lane Hutson, just terrific storylines with the Canadiens.
So I'll go with Laine first because that's the quickest one. He's like when the NBA brought in the 3-point line, there were certain players in the league that were literally 3-point specialists.
Yeah.
Chris Ford, I was a Boston Celtics fan. Chris Ford was this guy. He ended up coaching for years and years in Milwaukee. He would run down the court and go stand in the right corner. That was his part of the offense, and he could shoot. And nobody knew. Like, how do you defend it at the time, right? It seems silly now, but he would just go over there. Bird would do whatever he wanted, pass it over to Chris Ford, and poof, 30% of the time it was in the hoop. And that's like Laine. If he stands over in that left circle on the power play and twice a game gets off that one-timer, he's a factor. Now, they manipulate him in the lineup so they, his minutes are what they are, but he could be a one-shot difference maker. I think Lane Hutson, well, I'm going to say as of today, Lane Hutson would have my Calder vote. I'm thinking of that horse in the Kentucky Derby, whatever, something Birdie or whatever, that Duffy used to make a big deal about, that would come he would just like race through the pack, and he came out of nowhere and just like blazed past everybody. It's about 10 years ago. This is Hudson, because Celebrini, or first it was Michkov, then it was Celebrini, and quietly Hudson just kept rolling along. And for me, he's the rookie there. Nick Suzuki's an awesome player, just awesome, smart. A lot of Braden Point I see in Suzuki, like, right-handed, same frame, same build, and like kind of like not really much outward emotion, just kind of like plow straight ahead. I love watching him play. One guy not to forget, Montembeault in goals, had a really good. This is Montreal. If Montreal makes it, to me, this would be the surprise of the season. I just didn't think they would be at this point, while they're still so inexperienced.
Yeah, in the fight for sure. Ottawa's got a playoff spot. Steve Staios, I think Hockey Ops in Ottawa has done a real nice job of adding the obvious significant pieces. You think of Linus Ullmark, you think of Dylan Cousins, there are others, to build around what they have in Brady Tkachuk and that younger core. And it's come together. We'll see whether or not they've got the horsepower, the experience, all of that to do anything, make some noise in the playoffs. But I think Staios and company deserve some credit for adding the necessary pieces at a time when it was right to add those pieces to give Ottawa that push.
Now, what's the first thing though, Dregs, is they got a new owner, and with the new owner came stability. Just think of how little you've heard from Ottawa this year. I don't mean on the ice, but there's nothing. And that's probably the time when teams have their best opportunity to succeed, when there's not a bunch of noise and nonsense going on around them. Travis Green came in, and we've had Greeny on, and sometimes I don't think he comes across the way he is. He's pretty, when he's in the media, I think he keeps things pretty tight, but he is a direct communicator. Like, there is no question about what Travis is expecting. Staios goes out. I thought at the beginning of the year, maybe the most impactful addition in the Eastern Conference would be Linus Ullmark, because I felt Ottawa was right around the playoff cut line. I'm like, he gives them a different look when he's in the net. And Ottawa, there's something about that team. Maybe it's because of Brady, but they're a little unruly. And they're young and feisty. And I'm like, that could easily be a real pain in the ass in the first round.
Oh yeah.
That really, like, a lot of teams, they're young and they get in there and they kind of tiptoe their way into the series. I don't see that with Ottawa. And wouldn't that be something if they get the Leafs? And
I mean, there would be a sense of nervousness in Leafs Nation.
Sure, there should be.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And
all right,
what would you guys be covering there? What would you be covering around there?
I'm doing the Jets. So I know what I'm doing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, back to Manitoba, isn't that? It brings a tear to a glass eye. You going back?
Yeah.
There,
Dog never leaves studio, so I'm sure they'll be fixated and focused on the Leaf series. But I get to go.
Oh yeah. Well, by the way, that was the, I think, 7th anniversary of O's 40-yard dash in the parking lot. I watched that stupid clip 20 times yesterday, and I just can't stop laughing. Him and Al's brother is running in the wrong direction. He's not even running straight, and he beat O in the 40-yard dash, which is just, if you haven't seen it, you really got to see it.
I shouldn't retell this story, but you bring it up, so I will tell it. And it's amusing in the context that both, I call him Michael, I refuse to call him Big Al or whatever, Al's brother, whatever his name is. Michael is his name. And so, they were good sports about it, and it's self-deprecating humor. That's why they did it. But I remember we had a regional game that week, and we ran it as part of our regional game coverage, and everybody's having a hoot on the panel. And I just blurred out, God, I feel sorry for the asphalt. And as soon as it came out of my mouth, I'm like, oh, that is too harsh. And not often, but every once in a while, like, and instantly people are texting me and, people are saying stuff on Twitter. And that one stuck with, I think it was about a week later. I got we're answering a quiz question. I got well, yeah, but you didn't play the game. Which was, all right, you want to call me fat? All right, let's play that game, buddy.
You lose. By the way, you got to give O some props though. O does not. Yeah. O does not take that. I've been really impressed. He's dug into it here. He's looking svelte.
Yeah, svelte. He is. All right, let's wrap up the Tim Hortons headlines with one more team in the East. And of course, that's New Jersey, right? And we're talking about the teams that weren't in that are in now.
Yep.
No Jack Hughes. Interesting on Dougie Hamilton, though, right? So now we're hearing that there's a slim chance of him getting back before the end of the regular season. So that's a pretty big shot in the arm if Dougie Hamilton is in the lineup for the Devils. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, Hughes not being there is a huge hit, but is there enough across the board that this New Jersey team could be a serious factor
here? I don't know how you take out, one of your most creative, dynamic players and it's going to be okay. Like I just think that, Jack touches every part of that game for the team. And I think it's impossible not to miss him. They're going to get in that first round series against Carolina, and that's a buzzsaw, right?
It is.
And they're a really hard team to play anyway, and without one of your best transporters of the puck, I think they miss him. I got to say though, Heischer's having an amazing year, career highs in goals. He's really taken to the. Now, there's always responsibility as a bloody captain, but he's taken to the extra bit. Him and Jesper Bratt. Bratt's a wonderful player to watch. I just feel like they got hamstrung here with a bad injury to the wrong guy at the wrong time.
Agreed. All right, those are your headlines. Thank you to our friends at Tim Hortons. It is time for Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. Once a week, we bring in TSN's Ryan Rashog to host this segment of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, which, by the way, is brought to us by Acon. Acon is a North American construction leader and proud to be one of Canada's original industrial contractors. They're building some of the largest multi-year industrial projects in Western Canada, and you can be a part of it. They're looking for skilled tradespeople, construction professionals. They want you to join the Acon team and start building what matters today. Send your resume to trades@acon.com. All right, there is Ryan Rashog. Hey, by the way, before you get into Ask Ray and Dregs Anything, Ryan, normally you chime in with little factoids just to confirm, right? Ray was reaching for the horse in the Kentucky Derby, something bird. Yeah. What was it?
Did you? Bye birdie. I got it.
I'm not going to say it, Dregs.
I thought
nice try. No, nice try. I'm not saying it. So this is actually, Ray, just so you know, and Dregs, I'm not doing the push-ups because now I'm just going to explain. Okay, I'm just explaining here. So this is not a get by you.
We're going to take this to council. We're going to take. Okay. Go ahead, explain. Yeah.
So Ray, you know what this is about, right?
I do now.
Bird. Yeah. So the name of the bird is Mind That Bird. And I was going to ask you guys, are we still playing the mind game? Because it has been years since either of us has got, and for anyone out there that didn't follow our stupidity on Twitter, if one of us can get the other one to say the word mine, you got to drop and do 10 push-ups like immediately wherever you are. But we don't play it anymore.
Fabulous, but there's been fabulous. Who ended up with the one at the Flyers Stanley Cup?
I think Parker.
Was it Parker?
I think I have a picture of Dave Parker doing push-ups
on the stairs in the arena. To do it. And there's people all around, and one of us dummies is down on the staircase inside the bowl of the arena doing 10 push-ups.
Yeah,
so stupid.
For years, like we did a decade of that ridiculous game. I remember one time, Ray, you may or may not remember this. I was sitting at home bored. And I'm watching Nats hockey, and you're on That's Hockey. I was like, So I text you something. You said mine in your response. I'm like, that's 10 push-ups. And you actually, I think it was while you were on set at That's Hockey, you just had to drop and do them in the studio. And I was like, I just said, I think my buddy or something was there. I was like, yeah, I just made Ray do 10 push-ups. He's doing them at the commercial break here. So like, we've done
that was
ridiculous
offside.
places. Yeah,
hey, that was offside. I'm concentrating on the gig. Now I got to do 10 push-ups. Where do you think it all started? Right, the game, right over there. Yeah, you always.
Yeah. Well, we've had some classics. We'll have to, in a slower moment of the Rain Dregs podcast, we'll have to get into some storytelling of some of the sites. But as we're talking, Ray, this might get you. It won't get you upset. You're zen now. But there will be no discipline for Jalen Chatfield. None.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's. I just don't understand it. I mean, I just don't understand it. What's the department called? Dregs?
What's that?
What's the department
player
called?
Safety,
I believe.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Department of the safety of players.
Yeah. Department of Players is what it is. Like I just don't agree with it. I just don't agree.
Okay.
I don't know how it could be not considered dangerous. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well.
I mean, they just find a guy
tie off the loophole. That's
yeah.
They just find a guy for taking a slap shot during play because they know it's not an okay thing to do, even if there's nothing inherently illegal about taking a slap shot while the clock is still running. But they decided to step outside the box and on principle say, that we're not going to stand for that. So I know I'm not the opinionist on this show. I mean, there are certain times, Ray, when you know you've got a player vulnerable. That is one of those times where you've got a guy vulnerable.
Like because there is 5 plays a game where if somebody really wanted to hurt somebody, it would be really easy to do. But there is there's like and this is something like in the moment, like guys make these decisions like snaps of fingers, right? Like, and they make the safe decision. Like I don't want to call it the moral decision, but the right decision in those moments almost all the time. And when they don't, that's what supplemental discipline is supposed to be for. In my opinion, it's nothing else more than that. Guy made a choice in a moment. It was the wrong one, and there's supplemental discipline. And I think, I'm the example you give, Ryan, I hate to give you props. I can't stand it. This was a fantastic analogy of what happened in the last week. The clock was running, and I thought he should have got fined because we all knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
I thought he should have got fined, but the clock was running. It's still in the game. Does that mean you can, when a guy takes a slap shot that misses a net by 20 feet and hits the guy over in the corner and he breaks his ankle, that's fine? Like this is, the 2 examples, Ryan, are just, in my mind, are just perfect.
Yeah. Well, with that compliment, we're going to wrap the show. So I'm going to take my win and get out of here.
Set and match. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll just do a couple here right in. So this is from somebody named Kyle on Twitter. So Kyle goes on a lot here to complain about the Toronto Maple Leafs. I get the sense that he's a fan because he says hour. So I'm not going to read the whole thing because he talks about no number 1 goalie, no scoring depth, Matthews injured, no 5-on-5, this and that. But the fundamental question I think he's stressing about is, do you believe that the Toronto Maple Leafs can take out the Florida Panthers through the course of a 7-game series? So, Ray, I'll just kind of put this to you guys. Can you kind of handicap what that series could potentially look like for the Maple Leafs against the Florida Panthers in a playoff series this year, Ray? What are their chances?
I think they're better than they were a year ago. I don't think Florida's as good. I think Toronto is better. I understand Matthews doesn't appear to be at 100% just because his goal totals are down by half, right? But I think they can check their way into a series that they couldn't do a year ago. They don't have a number 1 goalie. I don't know. Teams can win without a number 1 goalie. And we're not talking about the Stanley Cup. They're talking about winning a series. I think they'd love to play somebody else first and you might not have to worry about Florida, right? Like that might not even be a concern. And so, but I do think, I do think Toronto can win a series like that. And I don't think they could a year ago. I mean, they lost in game 7, right?
Yeah.
A year ago. And I think they're defensively, I think they're a notch better than they were.
I agree. And you know what? They played on Wednesday night, and Toronto prevailed 3-2. I mean, the stars of the Maple Leafs were snapping the puck around. Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares again with another nice goal. I think the scoring depth is there, provided they can get that third line going, and that's Scotty Lawton and Max Domi. Those guys have to find a way to contribute. I know Craig Berube thinks the defense of the Toronto Maple Leafs is solid, right? He does. Oliver Ekman-Larsson doesn't get enough credit, at least in Toronto, for what he brings. Carlo has helped stabilize that pairing with Morgan Riley. Across the board, they feel like they're better physically, at least in the defensive zone, and their goaltending tandem is okay. There's nothing wrong with their goaltending tandem, but all those things have to come together the way that they did last night to have success in round 1.
Well, one caveat, Florida's lineup looked a little different than it probably will in the playoffs.
No Barkov, no Tkachuk,
no Ekblad. Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah. So that actually transitions into our next question. Derek from Seattle. Miro Heiskanen's status seems unclear for the Stars for the start of the playoffs. Matthew Tkachuk looks good, but could miss time. Which would be the greater loss for their team, Ray?
Miro Heiskanen, I would say. I mean, you're looking at 25, 26 minutes a night. Although it doesn't seem like Dallas has missed a beat. I talked to somebody the other day, and they said, like Dallas is really comfortable in a tighter, low-scoring game. They don't mind if they get outshot. Like they defend really well. They've got a great goalie in Ottinger. They don't seem to mind that sort of counterpunch game. Heiskanen changes a lot for them, and as good as Matthew Tkachuk is, I think Heiskanen pushes Dallas into that next group, whatever that might be, because they're already at the very top.
Yeah, I agree with that. And look, I mean, Matthew Tkachuk, I mean, he's a leader for the Florida Panthers. That's pretty obvious, and he can play any game you want to play. But they do have other assets that they can now lean on, including Brad Marchand, who comes into the mix. So, Tkachuk is most definitely a difference maker, but I don't know that he creates the same hole in a playoff lineup that Miro Heiskanen does.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Okay, we'll do 2 more here, gentlemen. I know you guys probably got word the other day. The market I'm in, Edmonton, lost just a really awesome guy. His name was Bruce McCurdy.
Yeah,
he was a long time Oiler podcaster at the Cult of Hockey, a blogger. And Bruce was well known for deep diving after games and providing an extra layer of statistics for his readers. So he and David Staples, they would actually track contributions towards grade A scoring chances for and contributions towards grade A scoring chances against. So when you read their articles, you were getting things that weren't readily available in the mainstream stats sort of pantheon. So in honor of Bruce McCurdy, and we send our deepest condolences to his family, everybody's feeling it right now. But in honor of Bruce McCurdy, I put to you guys, if there were a statistic out there, Ray, that you could have readily available that currently isn't, that you think would tell an important tale, what stat would you want?
Okay, so as the plus-minus stat became less and less important because there is more complicated, more in-depth stats, I think at times for the general fan that gets too complicated. So I would like to see a way for the plus minus stat to become a true marker again, albeit going to be flawed because there's going to be some goals you're going to be out there for where you got nothing to do with. But one of the ways is that if you're an offensive player, you get burned with empty net goals against, and the the fact that teams pull the goalie so much earlier and will pull it multiple times and give up, in some cases, multiple empty net goals. I think there's got to be a way, or I would like to see a way for that to be illustrated in that stat. That, like last night, I did the Seattle-Vancouver game. Adam Larson's plus 18, which stands out on the Kraken like he got traded from a playoff team. Like he's the only guy. He's plus 18.
Yeah.
He's never out there for empty net goals against. And that's, I think, a pretty critical difference for right? He's never, when they pull the goalie, he's not on the ice.
Yeah.
And so I think I would like that. I would just I
like it.
A stat that
I do too.
Create understanding or a better clarity for a fan, something that's easily understood like that.
Yeah, Bruce would have loved that.
I like that. I've given this some thought because, Ryan, in fairness, you did give us a bit of a heads up. It wasn't like a 24-hour homework assignment, but let's say an hour or two, right? And I didn't come up with anything as original as Ray. Maybe this exists already. And Ray, tell us if it does. And I'm thinking of the goalies, okay? Is there such a stat that monitors the transition or the clearing plays made by the puck handling goalies? And it only comes to mind because I watched Bobrovsky do it 3 or 4 times, in that regional Leaf game last night, where it's not just simply making a play to his defenseman. It can be that, but it's off the glass if he has to fire it. Like, not that many goalies in today's NHL game do that. Like, what is there some sort of puck exit transition that tracks back to the goalies that already exists? I don't know. I can't.
I do. I don't think so. Again, watching the game last night, Joey Decord is awesome at moving the puck. Like, he's a really good skater. He gets out there, and so I'm thinking of a couple right away. Jordan Binnington's fantastic at it. Decord is excellent at it. Stolars will get out and they play the puck. They don't just fire it off the glass, as you mentioned. That stat, I wonder. There is no stat. It's all kind of an eye test. You kind of know. Geez, don't dump it behind it. Yeah. But it would be. I bet you it would be not that hard to put together something about completed passes off the goalie's stick. And
why not?
I bet it would be kind of interesting to look at.
Well, how about something as simple as you track every single time a goalie touches the puck, which team touches it next? Like,
see, that's
who's got the puck,
Ryan?
Right after the goalie touches it.
That's one of my. I sit with a piece of paper sometimes, and I'll zero in on a guy, and they'll say, "Oh, he makes safe plays," which of course are shot or pucks off the glass that go out to center ice. And so I just have I have a bunch of players' names, and I just mark us and them. And you'd be surprised how many times it's close to 50-50. It is an absolute clock killer of a player. So what happened when he was out there?
Category. That's the Strudwick category right there.
What happened when he was out there? Nothing. Good shift.
Solid work. The one I've always thought would be good is just quality of a player's puck touches. This would be impossible to gather because it would take you hours and hours. But every single time a player touches the puck, whatever they decide to do with it, they get a rating. Positive, negative, or neutral. Like, what did that puck touch result in? And then you would have a player's rate, like, for how effective he is every time he touches the puck.
I like it, but I would think that wouldn't most pro scouts do that? Or amateurs.
It depends, Dregs, because it would be impossible to do manually, but with the puck tracking, I bet you the teams have something internally that would give them that, because the amount of data they can. Yes, of course, but the amount of data that they can cull out of that is, I mean, it's almost endless. But that's a shockingly 2 really good ideas from Ryan in this.
I am on fire. Seriously, whatever this is, and people don't even know this. When we originally jumped in on the chat before the podcast started, Ray was all over Dregs, just giving it to him. So normally I'm the target, and I'm coming up all aces today. No Wrath of Ray for me and two good ideas in one show.
Let's
can only go down
here.
from here.
Why did this start like that, though? No, why did it all start like that? We wake up at 6 in the morning, 5:45 in the morning in the West Coast here. I wake up and there's a pile of meat that Dregs
Zuby, go ahead, bring it in. Like Dregs, how long are we going to get these texts from you? So the guy buys an 8 slicer.
Look at this,
and feels like he needs to send us this. How long are we going to get piles of meat on a plate pictures for?
Hey, everyone listening to this podcast loves a great big pile of ham.
Yeah. Not at 6 in the morning.
Hey,
Not at 6 in the morning.
Thank you.
The whistle was a nice touch.
That's
what I did. Part of that, I was working.
That was dinner last night at the Draggers. No condiments, no side dishes, just a slab plank. The platter hit the table, and that was it.
No. Not true. I cooked the ham last night. It was chicken parm last night, but I cooked the ham knowing that I was going to slice up some sandwich meat.
You're like a little kid with a new toy.
Look at this is great. Look at me slice up. What do we got today, Holly? The garage has now got one of those industrial freezers in it. They're going to need to just throw this stuff in.
I'm going to send pictures to my friends. It's a novelty thing for them. Like, heaven forbid you ever get like a loofah sponge and we start getting pictures of your heel shavings. Like, all right, last one. This comes to us from Chris Conacher. Hi, guys. I've always wondered how much communication there is between a team's general manager and head coach, specifically when it comes to trades and what the team needs when making trades. I'm sure it depends on the team, and they're all different, but can you provide us a little insight? And Chris finishes off by saying, P.S. I was listening to the podcast last night while laying in bed. Thanks, Chris. When Ray proclaimed he would take the bird shit spa treatment, I laughed so hard I woke up my wife from a dead sleep, and I'm still chuckling about it. So, there you go. Loyal listener, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. By the way, I've asked a few people about that. I've given the examples, and almost unanimously, the bird shit treatment takes.
Nobody took the slug slime.
What was the other? It was a snail trail or something like that.
Oh,
the slug slime.
Yeah.
The slug crawls across your face and leaves a trail of excrement, and apparently that's great for making you look younger, Dregs.
Okay, but the follow-up question should be, and I always play this, what would you do for X number of dollars? So if you're having the bird poop spa treatment, how much to have it land in your mouth?
No, we're not doing this.
The slug cross your.
We're not doing this, Dregs. You always you make it weird. You take stuff and it goes too far and you make it weird. He does this all the time, Ray.
Yes, this is not an answer.
I don't remember Chris's question.
Chris, sometimes I think there is a lot of communication. I think it depends on the coach and the GM and their relationship. Might also have something to do with what kind of footing the coach is on at that time. But I would, in a lot of cases, the needs of the team are discussed all the time. And if there's a way to plug that, if you've got two options, you'd probably ask. If you've got one, maybe the coach gets asked, what do you think of this guy? But what if you're the GM? This is why there can't really be collaboration all the time. And the coach doesn't have the same feel about a coach always will trade everything of the future for today. He doesn't give a damn about the future. He's got to coach today. And the GM's got to look at it in a far more complicated manner. So I think there is communication, but not on deal after deal.
No, I agree. And look, every team, the general manager would consult with his coach, and that would be well in advance of the trade deadline, right? Like, here's what I see. What are you seeing? What are your primary needs as head coach of this team?
Right.
So you get that feedback. But I can tell you this. So maybe the majority of the teams do have their head coaches involved in the trade process as it's coming to an end, like just the GM giving the coach a heads up. You'd be surprised at the number of coaches that reach out to me around trade deadline. Are we doing anything? Are you hearing anything? Like, is my manager up to anything? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, a lot. It's shockingly a lot.
But Drake's next step of that is that how much time is there? You can't have consensus every time you think about a deal, man. Like you'd have no time. And so eventually, I'm sure there were a lot of trades that go down and the coach is like, ugh, okay.
Yeah. Especially on teams that are pointed in the wrong direction, right? And it's just like, or maybe you're on the bubble and it's just player after player. They just lose.
Yeah, I have a theory. The reason coaches walk behind the bench is they're always looking for new players.
I love it. It's one of your best lines.
They just look and they're like, same frickin' guys. Yeah. They still can't make a breakout pass. You know?
You've got a couple of pretty good lines, Ray. Not to make this a love fest between you and I today, but the other one that always cracks me up is when you're talking, anytime you get into the discussion about the value of paying a goaltender like 10, 15 million bucks, you always talk about how you got 15 million bucks sitting under a ball cap 30 games a year.
Guy's not even paying attention. He's over there. He's got a towel around his neck, has a drink of water. 15 million bucks over there. Good for him.
Yeah. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Ray. I think you and I have been great today, and this has really gone well. So nice job, my friend, and I look forward to talking to you next week. This has been Ask Ray and Dregs Anything, brought to you by Acon. And by the way, we send our heartfelt condolences to the McCurdy family and everybody affected. That was tough news the other day, but he would have loved that discussion that we had, the three of us, about statistics.
Excellent stuff. Thank you, Ryan. All right, there's Ask Ray and Dregs Anything, brought to us by Acon. All right, sir, are you traveling? Where are you headed for the weekend?
I have the best travel week of my season. I've been home since Sunday. I'm on a flight tomorrow to New Jersey, a direct flight, which is a win. So direct flight to Newark, get off the plane, eat dinner, go to bed, get up the next morning. Games at 12:30 on Saturday in New Jersey. Rangers Devils, 12:30. You know what? You know why I'm so happy about that, Dregs? Because I'm on a flight home after the game, and I get home Saturday night. That never happens. So
gaining the 3 hours too, right? So you'll be tired, but
no, this will be great, and I'm looking forward to this. Like the Rangers, these points are everything to them, right? If they're going to get in, they can't lose much here, and so that'll be a really important game at the Rock on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I mean, it might be premature in our next episode next week to start the autopsy tour. It might be a little early for that because there's still
it depends. There's
big week.
Yeah, well, it depends. There'll be a lot of teams we can.
Fair.
We're going to be down to just a couple of teams. I think the West is pretty well settled.
Agreed.
And so the only real issue will be if Minnesota and St. Louis kind of flip-flop whatever they're doing down in seed 7 and 8.
Yeah. Well, again, a big weekend. So look forward to the next episode.
Well, you have a good one too. Please send out more of your cuttings and shave. It's really interesting to me. Really,
it's coming this weekend, buddy. I've got something prepared. I'm not going to spoil the surprise. Great. This is merely a tease. It's coming for the next episode. All right. Safe travels. Enjoy the game.
Talk to you next week, everybody. Thanks for listening.
And thank you to our sponsors who continue to support Ray and Dregs and make the podcast possible. Our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. And as always, thanks to Acon. Until next time, stay safe, everybody.